The life you say you want may not be out of reach, but it may require a version of you that you do not recognize yet. In this video, me and a surprise guest challenge you to consider something uncomfortable. You may not be stuck. You may just be dodging the unfamiliar. In other words, choosing the version of life that feels familiar enough to manage instead of choosing the life that is so unfamiliar it requires you to become someone you've never been. Our goal with this video is to help you understand why the life you keep running back to feels safer than the one you say you want. We ain't talking about motivation. We talking about familiarity, the old job, the old excuses, the old circle, the old identity, the old level of ambition that never asks you to stretch past the person everybody already know. Because sometimes the next level does not feel inspiring. Sometimes it feels like walking into a room where nobody recognizes you, including you. And if you do not understand that, you will keep calling it being realistic when it is really your old life refusing to give up its seat at the table. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Now here's how some of us who are begging for freedom start to panic when freedom removes the shackles. I wanted to make content full-time as Tijuana Jackson. I wanted to be on stage at one of these content creator conferences talking to people about purpose, reinvention, discipline, emotional blind spots, and all the other fancy words folks use when they trying to avoid saying, I am scared to become somebody I've never been. I wanted autonomy. I wanted to set my own schedule. I wanted to spend unusual amounts of time with my kids, fishing, museums, building things together in the yard, setting up fruit stands and small businesses together, teaching my 5-year-old that creativity is not just something you do after school. Creativity can feed you if you respect it, prioritize it, and use it to serve something bigger than your ego. That was the dream. The dream was to become the living, breathing example. My son would not just hear me talk about ownership. He would see me build something I owned. Something that could not be taken away by people who smile in meetings while quietly trying to replace you with AI. Sound noble, right? Sound like one of them clean, inspirational stories where the music come in. And everybody start the slow clap like the end of a Tyler Perry movie. Huh? Then why did I feel like I had made the dumbest decision of my life? Why was I doubtful every step of the way? Why was I staring at spreadsheets like my taxes ain't been filed since OJ? Why did every step forward feel like it came with a fresh invoice, a family obligation, a business problem, and somebody asking me when I was gonna get my ass back to work? I thought the hard part was gonna be the work. No, I can work. I thought the hard part was going to be making time for family. Nope. Me and little man went fishing this morning. The hard part was all the unfamiliar weather that came with the life I claimed to want. But TJ, you said something about shackles earlier. Needing approval, needing certainty, needing to feel supported, needing to look good. All them is shackles, homie. Pay attention. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Here's my fully transparent story of how I dreamed of a new life, then started to reject it because it didn't feel familiar. The vision I had, the life I claimed to want, was like a vending machine because it required change. The problem is that change was really uncomfortable, or should I say, unfamiliar. Now, I didn't realize I was spending so much quality time with my son. Like I said I wanted to. I was in that office putting in hours like I needed to, and within a year, went from making nothing to making 6 figures doing exactly what I said I'd do. I just hadn't clocked it, because I still had the old blinders strapped on. See, I thought all that discomfort, the uncertainty, the rejection, nobody in my corner, I thought those were indicators of failure. Nah, sometimes those are indicators of unfamiliarity. I'm not just treading new territory. I'm in a changing power structure, changing social circles. I'm having to trust in mentorship. This shit is humbling like a prison shower. I'm used to being looked up to, liked, admired, top of the food chain. Now, folks cutting me off because I was standing dead smack in the center of everybody's disbelief like Nick Fuentes at the Essence Awards. Who is this dude? The old me would have been over-explaining my position, trying to win back that acceptance. Instead, I had to accept who would and would not be in my corner because I chose to bet on myself and believe that something greater was coming later. I chose to drive a cheaper car, eat out less, sell off some investments, attend workshops, conventions, masterminds, and relish the uncertainty of doing what feeds my soul. The old me would have needed some guarantees. I would have taken everyone's doubt to heart and framed these folks as haters. The new me is like, they not haters, but they ain't leaders either. And even though I'm at peace with what I've achieved so far, I know I got a long road left, and I'm comfortable walking it without the support or guarantees. Like an eBay purchase, type bars in the comments if you get that. But the biggest hurdle so far is processing all the emotions triggered by this unfamiliar walk I'm walking. Now would be a good time to hit the like button if you like something, and if you motivated as hell, hit that notification bell. But if you really want to see this channel grow, I'm gonna need you to hype the video and share it with your folks. Anybody trying to reinvent themselves should write this down. For most people, unfamiliarity is more uncomfortable than failure. Why? Because failure still fits you. You know how to wear failure. You know how to isolate in failure. You know how to blame it on timing, blame it on family obligations, blame it on the economy, the algorithm, the bills, the system, and the people who did not support you, etc. Being cast as the failure hurts, but at least you know your lines. You know how to be the underdog, the comeback story, the one who almost got there, the one with potential. The role may be painful, but at least it's familiar. And some of y'all done got real comfortable in that outfit. But familiarity, well, that hit different, like a hermaphrodite. Unfamiliarity does not let you hide inside the old explanation. Nobody knows what to call you yet. Nobody is clapping yet. The money is weird. The support is shaky. Your confidence still on layaway. And now you standing face to face with a version of yourself you ain't been formally introduced to. Familiar failure bruises your ego. Unfamiliarity threatens your identity. Type bars in the comments if you get that. If you spent years believing the reason you don't finish what you start is a lack of discipline or laziness, please stop doing that. Research has repeatedly linked your procrastination, your failure to follow through, to emotional regulation and short-term mood repair. That means you are not necessarily avoiding the work. You avoiding the emotional part of your creative process. Hence, your routines and resolutions fall apart. Nothing gets finished. Me and Romani will be hosting a live 90-minute workshop breaking down the emotional blind spots crippling your follow-through and a blueprint for what to do about them. And yes, it is a live 90-minute workshop. If you ain't a millennial or Gen Xer, this might be rough for you to stomach. But if you are a millennial or Gen Xer who is ready to confront your emotional blocks and activate the go-getter in your ass, link is in the description. Now let's get back to the program. I was about to try to explain what every one of us must do once we realize we might be confusing the unfamiliar for failure. But Romani said something inside last week's community coaching session that put it cleaner than turpentine. So here's a life-changing clip where Romani cooked for like 3 minutes straight. Pay attention. Take notes if you have to. As difficult as it may be to accept, comfort is not always confirmation. Even in my acting career, comfort was usually the first sign that I was making lateral moves instead of climbing the ladder. Samuelson and Zuckhauser, these two researchers studied how people make decisions. Their whole thing was about status quo bias back in 1998. What they were saying was your mind has a habit of giving the current version of your life special treatment just because it is the current version of your life. So the old life gets home court advantage. The old identity gets automatic trust. The old routine gets treated like wisdom. Meanwhile, the new life got to keep proving itself every 5 minutes like it just got pulled over in a wealthy neighborhood right before pulling into its own garage. That is why comfort is so tricky. Comfort may not mean you are aligned. Comfort may just mean you're back inside a version of yourself you already know how to perform. Speaking from personal experience, reinvention does not usually feel comfortable at first. It feels awkward. It feels unclear. It feels exposed. It feels like walking through a neighborhood where you don't recognize any of the street signs. And if you were parentified as a child, it can even feel selfish as an adult. Because when taking care of everybody else becomes your identity, choosing your own expansion can feel like you're abandoning your calling. Step 1. Can we all agree to stop treating unfamiliarity as automatic evidence that something is wrong? Because unfamiliarity needs to be investigated, not just obeyed. There is a difference. That is how I have personally missed out on opportunities that I had not trained for. I felt something unfamiliar and assumed that meant the whole opportunity was wrong. But one unfamiliar emotion is not enough evidence to convict the whole vision. Y'all following me, right? It may be a sign to abort mission. It may also be a sign not to quit, a sign to explore, a sign to check for alignment, a sign that the opportunity is asking for a part of you that is still undeveloped. Stephen Hayes, one of the major figures behind commitment and acceptance therapy, he and his colleagues have been studying experiential avoidance since the early 90s. They said that sometimes people avoid the feeling that comes with the goal, then convince themselves they're avoiding the goal for logical reasons. So the question is not just, is this hard? The better question is, what feeling am I trying to get away from? Y'all get that? Is it uncertainty, exposure? Is it accountability? Is it being seen? Or is it just the vulnerability of having to ask for help? Okay, one more thing. I promise to shut up after this and let y'all talk, but did you know that clinical psychology researcher Danielle Einstein reviewed the literature on intolerance of uncertainty in 2014? She wrote that when the outcome is unclear, some people retreat back to the familiar problem because uncertainty feels harder to tolerate than the pain they already know. I ain't TJ, but I gotta say bars. Folks run from opportunity because the unclear outcome is more terrifying to them than having no opportunity at all. So step 2 is to acknowledge that when the outcome is unclear, the familiar problem can start feeling safer than the unfamiliar possibility. Does that resonate? This is why we always say inside this community, discovery often requires exploration. You do not discover the next version of yourself by waiting until the next version feels familiar. You discover it by entering the unfamiliar with enough awareness to tell the difference between real danger, poor alignment, poor preparation, and growth-oriented discomfort. Bottom line, everything unfamiliar is not a warning. Sometimes it's the first honest sign that you have finally stepped outside the version of life you already know how to manage. To every single person here who's already started their project, does that resonate? If so, type nailed it in the comments. Bethany, where are you? What if I told you that another major reason you struggle to prioritize your own dreams has been sitting in plain sight all along, and you ain't even know it? This video will drag you into the deep end and bless you with game. You ain't gonna be the same after this one.